In Batman Begins, Batman must stop a commuter train because it will blow up a central important building, putting an end to the corruption in Gotham. In this movie, we want to blow up a central important building, putting an end to the corruption in London. Think about that. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss V for Vendetta. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. And welcome vigilant viewers of the visual voyage to another vivacious venture through the vibrant and vexing world of V for Vendetta. I'm your vigilant host, Laramy Wells, and my co-host and I are going to unveil the valor, veracity, and vindication within this cinematic vortex as we vault into the visionary world of V's Vendetta. Joining me is the vivacious and versatile dapper Southern gent. Please welcome the valiant and vibrant Blake Fowler.
Ah, Laramy, you are a vicarious visage for these eyes.
Oh, I was wondering if I'd get through that. So, all right. So we are talking about V for Vendetta. I will say pure coincidence that Blake and I decided to do From Hell. And then just a couple of weeks later, here we are doing another Alan Moore with V for Vendetta.
It is the time of your life, Laramy, and I can tell that it is. You're just like peppy, a lot of go-getterness in your step right now. The world is brighter, right?
Look, and here's the thing. I think I've already said this in some episodes. I'm planning to do Watchmen in March, so it's not going to be that much longer. I'm reading yet more Alan Moore.
Yeah, I feel like, and that is the one that may take the largest toll on you. Have you read Watchmen yet?
Yeah, so
okay.
Of all of them, Watchmen will be the only one that this won't be my first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
From
Hell, it was my first read. V for Vendetta was my first read. Hey, let's just throw in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in here.
Just go ahead and round it out.
Just make it run them all. Let's just throw that one in there somewhere.
You don't come out the same person after an Alan Moore graphic novel.
Oh, no, you do not. And I did want to get this one in. So I had already decided From Hell. It just worked out. I always like to do a Halloween one. It was perfect. V for Vendetta came from the fact that this episode is being released on November 6th.
So close.
It was so close. But looking at a calendar, I was like, I don't know if I can wait that many years to dead on hit.
When would that
November
be, actually? Do we know?
I
guess if it rotates every year.
Well, you got to think you got to skip the leap year.
Yeah, you got a leap year.
Okay, so the next time November 5th falls on a Monday is 2029.
Dude, that's right around the corner. You know what? Let's just
Let's
just call this one
6 years.
Let's call this one. I'll see you back here in 2029.
We could just redo the episode in 2029.
Oh, yeah, just do it again. It'd be even better.
Do it again. We might have more stuff to talk about.
Yeah. They might have released a sequel by then.
No, I hope. Well, I don't know. I think I actually want to talk to you about that a little bit later.
Okay, sorry.
So, but let's go ahead and talk about the whole reason behind V for Vendetta. Let's talk about Guy Fawkes.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask, did you know who Guy Fawkes was prior to V for Vendetta?
Being a bit of a history nerd and having been a social studies teacher as well, yes, I was familiar enough with Guy Fawkes to be able to hold a conversation with someone who wanted to talk about him. His upbringing and everything I'm not so familiar with, but the actual gunpowder plot and his involvement in that I am familiar with, yes.
Yeah, and that's really all it is. I'm not going to go into depth here. But yeah, Guy Fawkes, born in 1570 in York, England. The big thing is the gunpowder plot and treason. I don't know if those words are interchangeable, if it's all referring to the same thing.
Yeah, it is.
Both ways.
Yeah.
And that was in 1605. And as you see at the beginning of this movie, his plan was to blow up the Houses of Parliament and assassinate King James I. It was this whole Catholic versus Protestant thing.
Yeah, he just as an aside, he was born a Protestant or into a Protestant household, traveled a bit and ended up converting to Catholicism, and comes back to London where he's almost unrecognizable essentially because he's been gone for so long, and gets in with a group of co-conspirators who are planning on blowing up Parliament and assassinating King James I. The weird thing is he's not even the main conspirator in the plot to blow up Parliament. He just happens to be a guy, no pun intended. His real name was Guido, so we can call him that if you would like to. But he just happens to be the main guy who somehow outlasts the legend and lore of this event. Yeah, they're actually captured or found out before they can enact this plan, and those who survived the initial capturing were hanged and or drawn and quartered, with their body parts and heads strewn about Westminster and London for all to see.
Yeah.
So that is the end of Guy Fawkes, so to speak.
And every November 5th, they celebrate Guy Fawkes Day.
Yeah, they celebrate Guy Fawkes.
For some reason.
Yeah, they're like, well, initially it was to celebrate the stopping of the explosion, the blowing up of Parliament. And it's now turned into this phenomenon of we celebrate Guy Fawkes instead of stopping a treasonous act from occurring. So there's your nerdy side bit for everyone there.
But some people have renamed it. Isn't it just called like Fireworks Day?
Yeah, it's like Fireworks Day. Guy Fawkes Day in some circles. Like it's literally about him now. Yeah.
But of course, this even though this movie, of course, introduced us to the Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah.
Well, not movie, the
graphic novel. Yeah.
Introduced us to the mask with his, which I gotta say, I looked up pictures of Guy Fawkes. I don't know where the actual look of the mask comes from.
It's not super close or accurate.
No. No, the little mustache is all you get. But of course, the mask with its grin has become a symbol for rebellion against oppressive governments and institutions. Most people know it from the hacker group Anonymous, wearing it. When the Occupy movement happened a few years ago, there were members of the Occupy movement.
Or you might recall it from Halloween in the early to mid 2000s. When everyone wore it for a Halloween costume.
There was Turkish airline workers actually wore them in protest when they were fighting for their rights as workers. In fact, I read a lot of issues where it had been used in the Middle East. So much so that many of the countries in the Middle East have banned its sale.
Wow.
Like it cannot enter the country. Like it can't be imported. It can't be sold within several of the Middle Eastern countries.
Wow. Did not know that. Very interesting.
Yeah. And then there is I guess you'd say infamous photo of alleged girlfriend of Edward Snowden, Lindsay Mills, wearing the Guy Fawkes mask. So yeah, there you go. And then, as we talked about, they celebrate it every year. So it would have been yesterday as this episode is airing. And there's even a kind of referred to as a children's poem, which V does quote.
Remember, remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes and his companions did the scheme contrive to blow the king and parliament all up alive. 70 barrels laid below to prove old England's overthrow. But by God's providence him they catch, with a dark lantern lighting a match. A stick and a stake for King James's sake. If you won't give me one, I'll take two. The better for me and the worse for you. A rope to hang the Pope. A penn'orth of cheese to choke him. A pint of beer to wash it down. And a jolly good fire to burn him. Holla boys, make the bells ring. Holla boys, God save the king.
But this is, of course, based off of the comic written by Alan Moore and illustrated by David Lloyd. First published as a serial in the British magazine Warrior from 1982 to 1985. And it was broken into 26 installments. Wow.
Okay. I mean, that's almost as long as, some of our recent, was it From Hell you were talking about? From like over
From Hell,
2 decades or whatever?
But I think with From Hell, it was more, it wasn't as consistent.
Right.
I think with this one, it was consistent, but I think it was smaller chunks.
Okay.
I almost want to say it was how when you read the comic, they do the chapters.
Yeah.
I would think it's probably broken up like that.
And I guess if they did one every other week, it would take a year to do that. But
apparently, though, he didn't get to finish the story by the time the Warrior magazine went under, was no longer published, and that was when it was snagged up by DC, who then released it through their imprint Vertigo, and they were able to finish the story, and it was first released as a complete graphic novel in 1988. So there you go right there. So when was the first time you read through the comic?
Ooh, that had to have been right after the movie. When I don't even know. I should have looked. When's the movie released? I can't even remember.
So the movie was released March 17th of 2006.
2006. Okay, yeah. So it was, I don't know, probably the week after the movie came out. I went out and picked it up and read through it. I'll save my compare and contrast and which I liked more for later on. But yeah, picked it up, read it. Thought it was a fantastic piece. I tend to like Alan Moore and his writing. So just I enjoyed being able to go out and get another story from him.
Yeah, so of course, as I said earlier, this was my first time reading it. I had been always kind of interested in reading it, but I just never had the time. Again, when you get those thicker graphic novels, and especially, I of course knew Alan Moore work.
Yeah.
So I knew it was something I've got to be able to sit down and read.
Yeah, you have to give it your full attention.
Yeah. Yeah, so so this was my first read through it. I will, like I do most comics nowadays, I did read it through DC Universe online through my Kindle. Although I do own it. I do actually have a copy of it.
It's one of those ones you would like to own. I don't know. It's one of those ones that's just cool to have sitting on the shelf.
Yeah, I actually bought it in the little gift set that actually came with a mask.
With a mask, yeah.
Yeah. So I have the Guy Fawkes mask. And then, of course, we're talking about the movie that was. I actually thought it was directed by the Wachowskis. It was not. It is directed by James McTeague. This was actually his directorial debut. He would later go on to direct The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Horrible remake.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, the
I
original.
Like the original. I even like the one from the 70s.
Oh, okay,
the remake from the 70s.
Okay.
But yeah, this one I did not like. And then he directed The Matrix Resurrections, the newest Matrix.
We wish it would have stayed dead.
Yeah. But of course, that is his relationship with the Wachowskis. Yeah, who did the screenplay. So the Wachowskis, also famously, they are behind the Matrix movies. I also will always remember they're the ones behind Speed Racer.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah,
that always sticks with me.
Just
they did Speed Racer.
One of their most iconic films for sure, Laramy. Yeah. Speed Racer.
The movie was released March 17, 2006, as I previously said. However, it was supposed to be released November 4th, 2005.
Yeah, why? I don't know. Why not? What happened? Well, we had some rewrites, I guess.
I couldn't actually find in what research I did as to why it was delayed. I just saw it was delayed. But I mean, November 4th, kind of like what we're doing, a day off of the actual November 5th. But 2005 would have been the 400th anniversary of the Gunpowder Plot.
You've got to get that done and out on time.
Yeah.
You can't.
But nope.
That's rough. That's rough. We need to call the Wachowskis after we get off with this and talk to them about that.
And of course, as we talked about with From Hell, Alan Moore. So Alan Moore's never seen this movie, from what I have read, what I have gathered.
Alan Moore hates everything he does or anything in relation to what he's done.
So, of course, his first one was From Hell. That was in 2001. And he is credited as the writer on that one. Then in 2003, they did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
It's see, and that's
it's
one,
a guilty pleasure for me.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
okay.
It's a guilty pleasure for me. I do. Okay. I really enjoy League of Extraordinary.
It's not as bad as the rap it gets. I don't. But neither
neither
here nor there.
Yeah. But after that, I think Alan Moore was just saying nope. In fact, he is not credited. When you see the credit at the end of the movie, it says based on the novel or based on the graphic novel by David Lloyd.
Yeah.
It actually says by David Lloyd, who was the illustrator. And I'm pretty sure, like I've heard in most cases, Alan Moore said, "Hey, anything you're going to pay me, just give it to David Lloyd."
Yep, just pass it on.
So, yeah, I don't know if that still works with the fact that he asked not to be credited. Maybe he didn't. There wasn't anything that went to him. So yeah, there you go. All right, let's get into some characters. I don't want to talk about all the characters, especially when we're talking about.
There's a couple of main important characters, obviously.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the movie. There's characters that are in there for people to go, oh yeah, that's the character from the comic, and then they do nothing with them. So we, of course, will start with V, played by Hugo Weaving, who, again, Matrix, Agent Smith. I did find out that apparently some of the scenes are not Hugo Weaving. They are James Purefoy.
Really?
Yes. He was apparently originally V, but then for some reason he left the production 6 weeks into filming. They brought in Hugo Weaving.
He's voiceovers.
Just voiced over the scenes that were already recorded.
Okay.
Yeah. But we got V here, who is our... is he an anarchist?
He is an anti-hero, for sure.
Yeah, but is he an anarchist?
I don't know that he ever causes any anarchy by definition.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It's so... Well...
He is ancillary to anarchy in some instances.
Yeah. And see, I think in the movie you could argue no.
Yeah, completely no.
Graphic novel, you could argue yes.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about the movie here. Sorry, I guess we should have clarified.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we're going to talk about both as we go.
Yeah, in the movie, certainly not, again, adjacent to anarchy. But if you've read the graphic novel, it's hard to argue that he's not an anarchist.
Yeah. But yeah, he's got his own vendetta against the government. And again, we're going to kind of talk through even the moving panels as we're talking characters, because you can't do an Alan Moore story like this without doing it. Is his vendetta personal, though?
I don't think he cares enough about himself for it to be personal.
But I will say the movie kind of maybe does this a little bit more than the book. Is the vendetta for him, or is the vendetta for the woman?
Yeah, Valerie.
Yeah, Valerie.
Yeah, quote unquote.
Is that who the vendetta is for?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I don't know that he's concerned about his well-being or his personal vendettas enough for it to be personal, outside of the fact that perhaps Valerie is personal to him, making the vendetta personal for him. I know that's a lot of rigmarole to get into a question that should be straightforward, but
no, nothing in an Alan Moore book is
it's not straightforward. So, yeah, agreed.
In the movie, they make it straightforward.
Yeah,
in the novel,
they try to.
Yeah.
No, I don't see him. It was to send a message, to be a symbol, which is kind of a Batman thing later on. Yeah.
I've got the whole Batman comparison for us to talk about later.
You can destroy a man. A man can be killed. But you can't destroy a symbol. So no, to answer your question in short, I don't think it is purely personal. There might be a couple of instances, and depending on which, if you're reading or watching, will determine whether or not it's personal to you.
So there's not an awful lot to talk about here with Hugo Weaving's portrayal, because it's entirely vocal and then through body movements. Because he's got the mask on the entire time. There's no anything from the mask. So how do you think he did?
Well, first of all, let me ask: had you ever seen the movie? Maybe you said it already, and I missed that. You've seen it before.
I had seen the movie before.
Yes. Okay. Before I get into that, did you want the masks to come off in the movie?
No.
Okay, you like to stay on. Okay, just curious to say. I thought he did a great job. It's unfair now, and I'm probably going to be maybe not crucified for this, but mocked a little bit in our nerd circle here for saying this. I now compare all masked performances to Tom Hardy in Dark Knight Rises, who I thought did a fantastic job conveying emotion with a mask on. So
but you also had the ability to see his eyes.
Because his eyes. So looking back on it, and again, I rewatched the movie last week. He does a great job with just his body in blocking and being an actor who has no way to convey emotion with his face. I thought he did a great job of conveying how he was feeling, what he was thinking, and what he wanted to convey, I guess. Yeah. Now you're the actor here.
Well, and I think Hugo Weaving was almost a great pick for that, because you got to think even his portrayal of Agent Smith.
He's very body, or there's a lot of body.
Because he doesn't show a lot of facial, facial emotion. So I think Hugo Weaving, and his voice is great. I will reveal a little bit here. I was talking to Blake before we started recording. I actually attended a book club in a local bookshop. We won't go into details, but
you accidentally on purpose attended this, right?
Yes, okay, I accidentally on purpose joined a book club. That's an inside reference there, but in that, one of the ladies who was there actually talked about how she was attracted to V when she first saw the movie. And no offense to Hugo Weaving, she then found out what Hugo Weaving looked like.
Oh, yikes. Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they say true love is blind, Laramy, but apparently not.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about who in my opinion is Essence, the star of the movie. We can talk about her role in the novel, but star in the movie, which is Evie. That's all we get is Evie.
Evie Hammond.
Well,
in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think they say Hammond in the movie.
I really thought they did.
They? Maybe they do.
Maybe they don't. It's like I watched it last week. I don't know.
Or is it in the graphic novel? Do they ever say Hammond?
Someone check us.
Yeah, you can fact check us.
Yeah, fact check us later.
But yeah, so Evie Hammond, which I did have written down here, played by Natalie Portman, in which she actually shaves her head.
Yeah.
In this movie.
You remember the press tour for that thing, or like seeing her on paparazzi stuff when that happened?
Yeah.
Like the frenzy that was going on.
Yeah. I mean, she kept short hair for
a long time after that. Yeah.
Yeah, after that. So, I mean, you even look at the Star Wars movie. She kind of had
shorter hair. Yeah.
Shorter hair for those.
Yeah. Committed.
Yeah. So in the film, she's kind of your straightforward damsel in distress. From the beginning, she's caught up in being out after curfew. Then some of the Alan Moore, I love you, but calling them fingermen was a horrible decision. But she is stopped by some of them who, because she is breaking curfew, decide, hey, we're going to rape and murder you. She is then rescued by V. But in the movie, she's a quote unquote normal girl.
Yeah.
She's got a job at the television station. I mean, there's nothing really
extraordinary.
Extraordinary about her. And of course, she, I don't think they say it, but she's clearly like in her 20s, which is drastic different from the novel. In the novel, she is a 16-year-old prostitute.
Plot twist, everybody.
Yeah.
For who hasn't read it.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't read the book, just think about that.
I wasn't sure if you're going to make a reference to that or not, but yes.
I have to.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, she is a lady of the night, if you will.
Yeah.
Or teen of the night. I don't know if that's a lady or not. Yeah. Now, so here's
because is it she's 15 at the beginning,
and she as the 16? Year goes on, right? Yeah,
she turns 16.
So here's my question on that, and maybe you'll know: is that how it was originally written in these dailies, so to speak, or the serials? Was she
to my knowledge?
Okay,
yeah,
all right. I didn't know if Alan Moore just took that and ran with it, or okay. So
to my knowledge, is that the way it was collected is the way it appeared in the original.
Yeah.
Another big difference, to go ahead and point this out, is that in the graphic novel, she becomes V.
I thought it was going to happen in the movie. Well, I take that back. After reading the graphic novel, I thought, why didn't they do that in the movie?
Yeah. I'm kind of okay with them not doing it.
Okay.
I will say that as I read that part and Evie shows up on the rooftop and talks about, speaks to the people. Part of me's going, how is she doing this? And people believe she's actually V. She is, again, a 16-year-old girl who is having all these people believe she is this V who everyone has heard speak everyone has seen.
It's that nose, and
I get that we're reading it in a comic, but in reality,
suspension of disbelief there, Laramy. And you didn't want to see in the movie a Dark Knight Rises moment like Robin. I like that name.
Again, I have later on how we're going to compare this to the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone, that I can't make a podcast episode without referencing Batman. Okay?
No, you're the Alan Moore guy, you're the Batman guy, and as soon as I started seeing all these connections, I was like, this is a conversation Blake and I have to have. So I've got my Dark Knight trilogy connections later. Moving on to the next character, Eric Finch, played by Stephen Ray, who is a British actor. He hasn't done a lot of American stuff, mostly British stuff. I will say his probably claim to fame for American audiences was the 90s movie The Crying Game.
Oh, wow. He was in The Crying Game?
He was the main character in The Crying Game.
Oh, it's been a minute since I've seen The Crying Game. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was the main character in The Crying Game. And I'll leave it at that. I will say that in the movie, they make him more of a heroic character.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
I don't know. I didn't like his character in either.
He's not very likable.
He's not a likable character.
No. Okay.
Of course.
I'm glad we agree on that.
Of course. And you and I talked about this in From Hell. Alan Moore can't write.
He doesn't write a likable character. He writes 16-year-old prostitutes. So that's
I mean, and Evie's not that likable in the comic.
She's not at all.
Either. Yeah. So I mean, she's very whiny and even when she goes through her metamorphosis, I guess you would say, when V essentially tortures her and kidnaps her and
okay, let's just go. You're already there. Let's just go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah,
let's just go into it. I in both the graphic novel and the movie. So obviously, the graphic novel, you get more room to expound upon this particular, situation, I guess.
I will say it is one of the more true moments of the movie.
Yeah.
They really
they go in.
They go into as much as they do in the graphic novel.
I guess you get to linger on it a little longer in the graphic novel, obviously. Yeah. You get to take it in for a little longer. So I'm gonna skip to the end kind of here. Is V a good guy or a bad guy with all he's doing? We said, is he an anti-hero? Is he an anarchist?
Yeah.
He's kidnapped, and again, in the graphic novel, a teenager.
Yeah.
And is then torturing her. All in the name of prevenge or revenge?
Yeah.
He's, I don't know.
I literally have, later, like I said, we can't help but
you kind of interweaves.
No, and I'm fine with that. I literally have my first note for the moving panel section is moral ambiguity.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah, you really have to look, is V the hero or not?
Yeah.
And Finch is kind of one of those ambiguous characters too. Again, he is trying to figure out V, but at the same time, it's kind of like I can't help but make the connections with From Hell since we've talked about it so recently and I've read it so recently. He's a lot similar to Aberline.
Absolutely.
And not only is he doing the investigation, but he's also discovering things that, Aberline discovers that there's corruption within the police.
Yep.
And here Finch is starting to discover, hey, maybe the government's, got some secrets that they're not telling us. And
toes a fine line for most of the story.
Yeah.
Until the very end when he makes a pretty apparent decision.
So in the end of the movie, you've got Finch pretty much deciding, I'm going to be on the side of V, and he allows Evie to send the train, which is not in the comic. In the comic, he's the one that kills V.
Yeah, puts him down.
Yeah, and then in this drug-induced stupor, he just wanders down the road. That's literally the end of the comic book.
Yeah, talk about ambiguity.
The last page of the comic is just watching Finch just walk down an empty highway.
I kind of like the end of the comic, though, if I'm honest with you. I don't mind an ambiguous end to some degree, which I know there were a lot of things got tied up in the graphic novel, but his path, the rest of his life being, just what does he do? Where does he go from there? I would like to see that aspect, because, he's got a lot that he's done, a lot that he knows. And I think the metaphor of him wandering aimlessly down this road fits for the end of the graphic novel.
Well, especially because he goes to the concentration camp, Lark Hill, and which he does in the movie as well. But in the movie, he just talks about he goes there because he just wants to see what.
Yeah, he's just got this feeling there.
And he has a feeling. Whereas in the graphic novel, it's okay. I'm here at Lark Hill now. Let me take this LSD
and just trip.
And just trip out.
That's got to be an Alan Moore add-in, doesn't it? That's an Alan Moore thing.
I did not understand the whole idea of let me take LSD so I can get into V's mind.
You got to connect on
his
a
whole
level.
Reason for doing it in the graphic novel. And then, of course, he's just tripped out for the whole rest of the novel. The novel. Yeah.
Would have made for a great scene on film, I think. Go ahead and just...
Yeah. I just like it how in the movie, he's telling his partner what all he experienced while he was at Lark Hill, and his partner says, "So do you know what's going to happen?" He goes, "No, just a feeling.
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling."
I could guess, though.
Yeah.
I bet you could.
Yeah. All right. Next person I got here is Gordon Dietrich, played by the wonderfully hilarious Stephen Fry.
Such a good job.
But a completely different character from the graphic
novel.
Yeah, so in the movie, he is a closeted homosexual. He is the talk show host, the famous talk show host of British television, who also is, hiding not only the fact that he's homosexual, but hiding the fact that he is also part of the resistance. Yep. He's got a little
trove
in his house of band
paraphernalia.
Yeah. But in the graphic novel, he is Evie's love interest
at 16.
Yeah. She runs away from V at one point. It's a weird part of the graphic novel. I don't want to get into too much, but essentially V just lets her go, just leaves her out in the middle of the road. And she gets all upset. So she ends up in the arms of Gordon, who it starts off kind of platonic, but then they end up sleeping together and kind of a love interest. But same result. He ends up being killed in front of her. Or not in front of her in the graphic novel.
Yeah. I don't think he's not even killed in front of her in the movie, really. He is captured and dragged away in a callback to her mother, kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Although I do kind of have a feeling that last little blow to the head probably
did him in. Yeah.
Putting the bag over his head, they probably weren't aware he was already dead.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I really thought they were going to do, and I had seen the movie before, but it had been a minute. Been a few years. I really thought and really still kind of wish that they had done the death from the graphic novel. And so when he runs into the bedroom and tells her to hide, he puts his hands up against the door. And for those of you who haven't read the graphic novel, in the graphic novel, he knows somebody's outside of his door. He leans in and they run a sword through the door, which is what kills him. And so when he closes the door, tells her to hide, closes the door, and puts his hands up against I was expecting the same thing.
Thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
The sword, just the visceral aspect of the sword going through him in the graphic novel, and again in the movie, he's a much more likable character than dating a 16-year-old prostitute in the graphic novel.
He's a flat character in the graphic novel, though.
I'm glad they didn't do the death from the graphic novel because I liked him so much in the movie.
I get.
I hate that he had to die at all, but I'm glad they didn't give him the sword scene.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious though of how they spun that. I wish they kind of had a scene showing, because he clearly was a very recognizable face in the movie. So I was kind of interested to see.
Yeah, they spun everything. They had something to spin for every other incident that occurred.
They had all the news little things that kind of spun, the explosion being demolition, and but it was kind of like, okay, but spin this one. Like they did oh, I forgot how to pronounce it. Pethero.
Pethros.
Yeah, they did his and spun his, which that's another one. He kills him in the movie. He just drives him crazy in the graphic novel.
Yep.
So that was an interesting one. And also he's a radio voice in the graphic novel, but he's a television
guy.
Yeah, person. There's not enough there to talk about that character. I mean, to talk about the bishop, again, he's just another victim for V. Not really a lot of depth there. We can talk about the scenes a little bit later. Same thing with the doctor. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, but character-wise, there's not a lot here. And that's where we're going. The only other character I really care to talk about is Sutler. Adam Sutler, who is Adam Susan in the comic. I don't know why they changed the name other than to maybe make it sound like Hitler.
There's a lot of a lot of that in the movie, especially.
Yeah,
a lot of
visuals
that harken back to Nazi Germany.
I really wouldn't be surprised at all if I were to have found that John Hurt actually studied video of Hitler giving speeches.
Yeah,
because there's a couple of those scenes where John Hurt's movements,
a lot of hands, a lot of fists, and
Yeah, so, and it's funny, if you're a movie buff, John Hurt playing this character when he played pretty much the complete opposite character in 1984. And a lot of connections with this movie in 1984 that I have to mention later. But when it comes to Sutler, I want to ask you this question. Do you wish they still had the Fate supercomputer in the movie?
No, I'm glad they left it out, to be honest with you.
And the fact that Adam Susan's character, because again, it's not Sutler, has a weird relationship with these supercomputers.
Go read the graphic novel, everybody.
Yeah, just go read the graphic novel. I love that Alan Moore even knew what he was doing because he has the panels of the two guards just kind of looking at each other.
The side eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. First of all, you caught me off guard with the question, so I was not prepped to answer that fully. I guess I can imagine how they would translate that to the screen, but I'm glad I didn't witness it.
Yeah. I'm not going to ask my usual question that I usually ask with characters because I don't really think it fits for this. But I will ask: are there any other characters that you think maybe should be talked about?
I don't know that there's anyone of any consequence that comes to mind other than, and you have to remind me if it happens in the graphic novel. Other than the little girl who's gunned down in the film, I can't remember if that happened in the graphic novel.
It does. I don't think you do see a girl with glasses
because she really, that is really the event that spurs everyone into full blown chaotic action, so to speak, in the movie. Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily that moment in the graphic novel, but they do have. Yeah.
But she would be the only other person I would think of that would have any consequence in the film as far as background characters go.
Yeah, because you got Creedy, who is kind of
he's your prototypical villain. Yeah, he's not anything worth writing home about.
Yeah, and then Dominic, Finch's partner.
His partner doesn't really do anything.
Doesn't really get anything. I already mentioned Prothero, and there's really nothing else. But with all that being said, I do want to talk about a character that is in the graphic novel, but they completely left out of the movie. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do not. Again, it's been a minute since I've read the graphic novel, so I'm not sure who would have been left out.
So it's the one who kills Susan in the graphic novel.
Oh,
yeah. So it's Rose Allman.
Yeah.
Which Allman was the one who was in charge of the finger.
Correct.
And then he's killed by V in the graphic novel. He comes up on V right after, I think it's right after he's killed the doctor. And V stabs him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then Creedy takes over the finger.
As the finger, yep.
Yeah. Rose ends up having another relationship. I forgot who with, but ends up having another relationship. He is then killed. And then she ends up having to be like a dancer. And she ends up going out when all the security systems are down and all that. She goes out and buys a gun. And then during this like parade, she walks up to Susan and just shoots him point blank.
Vaguely remember her now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then she's, arrested. They have a scene where she's being tortured, and that's the last you see of her.
It. Yeah,
I don't even know what happens to her. But I wanted to bring her up because to me that is so much more of keeping with the theme of Moore's, book of the civil unrest and
it just could
the
be
effect on civilization, to have her be the one that kills Susan,
yep.
Again, as Sutler in the movie.
That it could just be any citizen or civilian
that has been affected by what is happening.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, it's Creedy.
Yeah. Under duress.
From V. Which brings me to another moment, and then we can go ahead and move into the moving panels. When they unveiled that they had Sutler to murder right there in front of V, did you not think that maybe it was going to be a trick? Because they had the moment earlier with Gordon's television show where he had the lookalikes.
Multiple dupes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly thought that could be a plot twist, but when I first saw the movies in theater, so I didn't have a way to like track the time of the movie, know how much was left. You watch it on your computer at home, and you kind of see, okay, well, I've got a few minutes left. It can't be a faker or a fraud. But watching it in theater, I can distinctly remember thinking, oh, this is going to be like the TV show where it's a dupe, and he's going to be standing off to the side or in the corner, and he's going to end up being the one that kills V. Yeah. Is how I thought it would go first time seeing it.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.
All right, well, let's get into the moving panels, just kind of talk about both the movie and the graphic novel, just kind of in unison together. I already brought up the moral ambiguity that this graphic novel and the movie has. And I do like that not only is it in the characters, but at least for me, and you can speak for yourself, it makes the reader even have to consider, like, what are the consequences of, really of our own actions when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
And this is, I don't like to get political with this show.
It's tough to avoid with this. I thought about that before we even recorded. I was like, there's going to be some political conversation.
Yeah, because again, the focus is on political ideology, but as well as the ethics of resistance.
I say your personal moral compass is also called into question.
Yeah, because Alan Moore with the graphic novel, we talked about this with From Hell. There's a lot of dislike with the Iron Lady, with his feelings on Margaret Thatcher and her role as Prime Minister. And you kind of, you can see where a lot of this came from with the graphic novel. The movie being set in 2005, well, not being set in 2005, but being made in 2005, which we can talk about the setting really quick. So the graphic novel, of course, is set in 1997. You can't set this in 1997 if it's coming out in 2005. So they actually set it in 2020, which is so funny.
It's wild, right? Because they talk about contagions and disease and
Yeah, the graphic novel, it's pretty much World War III that happens, which they blame the Americans for. And then England is not involved, but they are affected by the nuclear fallout that occurs. And that's what pretty much drives them into dystopia. In the movie, it's a virus that you end up finding out was released by the government. And again, we're not going to get political, but here we are. Very... In the year 2020, a virus, and there has been a virus that has wiped out civilization for the most part.
With conspiracy of it was released on purpose going on. So, a lot of parallels to that year in a movie that they didn't realize were going to be parallels.
No, but in 2005, you're looking at the Bush administration, because this is an American movie.
Yeah.
The graphic novel is a British graphic novel. The movie, although set in Britain, is an American movie. So you got the Bush administration, you got the Patriot Act following the events of 9/11.
The distrust of the government was at an all-time high, for sure.
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm wanting to get at without getting too political.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about all of that?
I think that they do. I'm trying not to, man. I'm trying not to get.
No, we're gonna tiptoe around it.
I think it is something that you have to look at and understand that. Unfortunately, no matter who is in power, there's going to be a level of distrust with some percentage of the population.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I look at this movie from the lens of there is a fine line between distrusting your government and distrusting your government to the point where anarchy reigns supreme. And where is the line in that? Is it civil unrest in a peaceful protest manner? Or is it civil unrest in a full-on take back your country manner?
Which again gets into the comparison between the graphic novel and the movie, because in the tone. I mean, in the graphic novel, it is an uprising.
Yeah, full-on anarchy.
Yes, when V motivates the people, he is motivating them to physically take control.
Yeah.
They attack the fingermen at the end of the graphic.
Yeah, very different from the movie. Absolutely.
Yeah, whereas in the movie they are approaching all the guards, all the fingermen, but the fingermen are told, "Hey, listen, we're not hearing anything," because of course at this point, Sutler has been murdered.
Everyone's dead.
Everybody has been murdered. Yeah, and so they just allow all of these people dressed as V to just pass by them. So yeah, a lot, and I got into the people who use the mask. The mask has been used in all those various ways. Mm-hmm. You've got like the Occupy movement, who they were peaceful protesters, and some of them wore the V mask. But then, and we're again definitely not going to get into too much here, but the January 6th incident at the Capitol. There were
you saw a few of the Guy Fawkes masks.
You saw a few Guy Fawkes masks in that as well.
Yeah, and I hate,
and that was not peaceful.
Yeah, and there's some people who are excuse me, going to say that Guy Fawkes is a metaphor, a person who represents any and all perceived injustices that someone has. I tend to think that if and we'll never know the true story of the gunpowder plot and why it was going on and what happened. Yeah. But the story being told is that he was fighting against an oppressive ruler. Like he was trying to take out someone who was creating persecution for a group of people that were undervalued and were outspoken.
Yes.
And so I think that you have to walk that. You have to understand that this mask and his memory is now being used across the board for just things people perceive as being unjust.
Yes. To their own
personal perspective. Yes.
Yes, their own perspective. Because you could make that same argument about Guy Fawkes.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot you'll read about King James the First that doesn't make him sound like
right. Doesn't make him sound like a bad
monarch.
guy. Yeah.
So all right, let's get into some more of the kind of plot points. I say more of the plot points. There's just one.
There's a main plot point, Laramy. Just one.
No. There's a kind of a side plot. The relationship between V and Evie.
I was like, okay, that's where you're going. Yeah. So I'm gonna jump straight to the end of something here. The kiss on the mask is weird in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just strange. I didn't like it. I didn't feel good watching it the first time. Didn't feel good watching it the second time. So to answer a question that hasn't been asked, I am not on board with the relationship.
Yeah, because in the movie it does become more of a they love each other.
Yes. Whether that's an agape kind of love or like a romantic love.
It feels more romantic to me.
Yeah, okay.
Especially even when he tells her, you've allowed me to feel love that I never thought I'd ever feel before. So they do have that in the graphic novel. Although there's a hint of it in the graphic novel, it feels more of just like a parental.
Yeah, she's a protege in the graphic novel. Yeah.
It's more of mentor mentee. It's more of a father-daughter. I mean, there's even where she thinks for a minute
that it could be her dad.
Yeah, her father. So, there is a lot of that. She does, I think, after her death, in part of her narration, she does say, "My love," when she's talking about him.
Okay.
But I think in both cases, especially, let's remind everybody, Evie is 16 in the novel.
Oh, God.
Although I will say, after he tortures her, she looks about 42.
Yeah, she does age some.
Yeah. David Lloyd actually does make her look like she has been through something.
Been through it.
But yeah,
it's just weird. It's weird. I would have liked. I would like for the movie to have kept the graphics novel take, where it is a, like you said, mentee mentor situation ship. They leaned into the. I don't know. It always bothers me. It's not just this movie. It always bothers me when whoever's writing or directing feels the need to insert a romance story.
It's Hollywood.
I know, but it's bothersome. It wasn't necessary. It didn't add anything to the movie. It didn't add to the stakes at all.
It's the same thing of they making this movie an action movie.
Yeah, as opposed to just a drama.
The graphic novel is not. Yeah. I admit I enjoy it.
The action scenes were done well. I liked the action scenes. They were done well.
Where he's down in the sewer and confronts the Fingermen and all that, and they kill Sutler, and then they go to kill him, and of course he's wearing the metal plate. Of course it does eventually kill him.
Yeah.
But
it's a very cool scene.
Yeah. But I could have done without like the little trail on the
slow-mo
knives as his. I'm fine with the slow-mo.
Well, with the slow-mo trail, yeah.
Yeah, but when he's throwing the knives and you get the trail of the knives, you clearly tell, yep, this was made by the same people who did The Matrix.
No, I was waiting for someone to like dodge the back bend, dodge out of the way of the knife or the bullet. Yeah.
Yeah. They made it a little bit too Hollywood. I mean, even as we talked about with Evie, again, Alan Moore can't write a sympathetic character, so the movie, the Wachowskis wrote a sympathetic Evie. And not that they changed the backstory all that much. In the graphic novel, they tell the story of her parents and them being taken away, and her
brother,
her not witnessing her mom's murder or death, but her mom does die, and her dad doesn't allow her to see it. And so, I mean, they do all of that, but they definitely with Natalie Portman, and they got to make a likable character. I get all that. But yeah, it's drastically different. All right, let's talk about what I was mentioning earlier. Let's talk about how similar this is to the Dark Knight trilogy. I really, again, after reading it and then rewatching it, I really sat there and I started thinking, there's a lot of stuff in here that I wonder how much David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan actually used. I would love to know if V for Vendetta was an inspiration. Before
we get into that, Batman Begins is 2005. So but I'm assuming they probably had seen or heard
Yeah,
some
but
of this.
yeah.
Yeah.
You also have the graphic novel.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
graphic. All of Hollywood is connected.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of though was Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller with all the talking heads, because the opening scene of the movie is talking head heavy, and so that's the first connection I had Batman wise watching it. So before you get into the trilogy there.
Yeah, and I my mind went into the trilogy a lot. So I mean, obviously there's the connection of the moral complexity of a hero / vigilante.
Yep.
You have where, as we talked about, is V the hero or is he a villain? Which of course the Joker in The Dark Knight kind of tries to get into Batman's head with that exact same thought.
Yeah.
And then at the end, Batman does make the decision of I've got to be the villain.
Yep.
So yeah, great there. You've got the I mean, you could even compare V with Joker himself.
I was going to say he's a little Joker-ish, or even Bane-like with his anarchy.
I had Bane here too. Yeah.
Yep.
Clearly, Joker and Bane are villains.
They are,
but there is still a little bit of ambiguity to them because they are, as any good villain. I've said this before. As any good villain is, there is a part where you kind of go, there's a little bit.
I get that.
Yeah. There's a little bit of, I understand their philosophy behind things. Their motivations do have a little bit of believability to them.
What is it? Being an adult means realizing that Batman can't keep on the straight and narrow, and the Joker was right all along, kind of thing. So it's just one of those situations where you're looking at what V wants to do, and eventually understanding why he wants to do it. And you're like, okay, put in that same situation, I would understand if I or you fell under the same set of circumstances.
Yeah. Of course, there is the whole, vengeance.
It's mentioned a lot. Yeah.
Vengeance, Vendetta, whichever one you want to kind of go with.
He's got a cape also.
Yeah. There's kind of a little Zorro connection.
A little bit.
Yeah. Especially loving the movie when he just over the top makes the V on the sign.
Just so aggressively.
With all the sparks and everything.
Yeah, you've got the Mask of Zorro with Batman. You got the Count of Monte Cristo in the movie with V. That they watched.
Movie. That's not in the graphic
That's what
novel.
I said in the movie. Yep.
Yeah.
So some of that. Sorry, proceed. I love hearing more about Batman.
So you've got the idea of surveillance. So in the graphic novel, it is the fake computer, which pretty much allows Susan to see anything and everything. In the movie, Sutler is on every screen. He's out everywhere. They've got the security cameras.
They even make mention in the movie when V takes over the screens. They're like, "You told us to put it in every household. Feed it into every corner." Yeah.
Yeah, but they even have where you've got the surveillance trucks that are
just
driving
strolling,
by, just listening to everybody. Which we haven't talked about this. What are your thoughts? We joked about the fingermen, but of calling each of the organizations like the ear because they're listening in, or the eyes because they're watching, and the mouth.
You might say it's a little on the nose.
Yeah, and then you got the nose that Finch is the head of because they're
sniffing out.
They're doing the investigations. They're snooping.
Yeah, it's a little much.
A little. I get the idea. I like the idea.
Every part works together for the body.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. But anyway, but so you got this idea of surveillance in both the movie and the graphic novel in different ways. And then, of course, that is a main thing in The Dark Knight Rises, which, Fox, Lucius...
has to shut down the...
Yeah, but, he questions...
He has to make the choice,
Yeah, he questions Bruce about what he's doing with his, quote-unquote, the bat cave of that trilogy with all the cameras and everything. So... And then ultimately for me, it's the fact that in both, the Dark Knight trilogy and in V for Vendetta, both V and Batman say that it is not the mask, that they are an idea.
Yeah, that's 100% where you look and you go, this has inspired the Dark Knight trilogy to a degree that is uncontestable. Right? It's very apparent.
And you even go into what we talked about with the Guy Fawkes mask. I mean, that's revealed in the Dark Knight with the sons of Batman. That you see that they're their own little vigilantes with their own rules, and they do play off that Batman's not a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that whole connection, and then you can't deny the whole apprentice thing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very again on the nose that it's a inspiration for the Dark Knight trilogy. I would say anybody who says it's not is probably wrong or lying to us. But I don't mind it because V and Batman are so similar in their ideals up to a point. V is willing to go that extra step as we see, but up until that line, they're essentially the same character. You know, have lost their parents, have experienced tragedy, have amassed a great wealth, one through, supposedly legal means, Bruce, and one illegally, V. But they're the same person with the same goals in mind to exact what their brand of justice onto those who wrong others.
Yeah. Yeah. I will ask you, though, so in the comic, Evie becomes V, that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of see a full circle moment to where she has abducted some dude and wakes him up, and she pretty much starts the cycle, process all over. Yeah. Whereas, in The Dark Knight Rises, we get the stuff with Blake/Robin.
First of all, it's a terrible ending to that. I'll just say that right off the bat. I'm not happy with that ending, but that's neither here nor there.
So the movie, though, V for Vendetta, do you think that maybe if we had a sequel or if we found out more, that you would find out that Finch is maybe now
has taken over
apprentice?
As the apprentice. I think Finch. Okay, so here's my idea for the sequel.
Or does Finch just become her Gordon?
So that's where I was going. He becomes the quote unquote the lookout, the one who kind of can cover the tracks and communicates with V, and is essentially her Gordon. So yes, that's where I think a sequel would go. Yeah,
which was my question. Like you brought it up right at the very beginning of the show. Should this have a sequel?
I wouldn't mind it, to be honest with you. I wouldn't mind seeing a continuation of what occurs after the events of the new November the 5th.
Would that ruin the original story, though? Because, sequels sometimes do that.
Sequels do sometimes do that.
Would it diminish the original story?
Whew, that's a tough call. I'm willing to take a chance.
Okay.
I'm willing to take a shot. And that may give away my end decision, but I'm willing to take a chance at a sequel.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say leave it be. That's where I'm going to stand. Last thing I'll bring up is I did find some other connections. Of course, I already mentioned about 1984. Mm-hmm. The connection there of using mass surveillance with, especially in the movie, with Sutler being on all the screens and everywhere, very Big Brother kind of feel there. The Count of Monte Cristo, which they bring up in the movie, not in the graphic novel, but in the movie. Yeah. You've got both V and Edmond Dantes. Both of their characters escape from a very traumatic prison experience. And then they spend years planning their vengeance.
Yep.
And they even do it through a new persona. Obviously V takes on the V persona, and same thing happens in the Count of Monte Cristo, which you could even loosely even make the connection with Les Miserables. With the same thing there with Jean Valjean. And then I can't help but make the connection with Phantom of the Opera. You got V and the Phantom, who both are wearing masks to hide their disfigurement. But you've also got, and this even more so with the graphic novel, the conditioning of a young woman.
Very, very nicely put.
Yeah. Through manipulation.
Call that grooming, Larry.
Yeah. I was trying to avoid the word.
I'm just gonna put it there. That's what it was.
Yeah. You can. Yeah. I mean, especially in the graphic novel, that is 100% what it is.
Okay. Just wanted everybody to be clear.
Yeah. In the movie, you could argue that it's horrible torture and manipulation. But yeah, in the graphic novel is 100% grooming. Yeah, and then of course there's also the vengeance there. I mean, the Phantom has a plan for vengeance, just like V does. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Bag it, stack it, or trade it. So go ahead, Blake. What say you? And you can talk about both the graphic novel and the movie.
Yeah, no. So again, I like a graphic novel or a book in general because you can linger on things a little longer. You get to spend some more time with them. And sure, you can rewatch a movie, but you really only experience it one time. I find that reading a book or a graphic novel, you experience something new every time that you're going through it. So in both instances, having said that, I would bag both of them. I am a staunch proponent of the movie V for Vendetta, outside of a couple of cheesy action parts, which we talked about, and maybe a couple of cheesy romance parts, which aren't needed. I think it's a very good movie. Having watched it again recently, it still holds up from the first time that I watched it. And I personally, without getting into personal politics, enjoy the message, enjoy the viewpoint of that you have to find your moral compass. What are you going to stand for? What will you stand against? And who will you stand with? And all those are important decisions and important choices for us to make in our lives. And then we have to look ourselves in the mirror and live with those. And this is, for better or worse, it still holds up as a good reflection of society as a whole. And I think it is something that will continue to withstand the test of time as a piece of film, and hope that more people watch it, because I think at this point in time it's a pretty underrated film. So bagging both of them, and again, if you haven't seen the movie, watch it. It's worth your time.
Man, I tell you, Blake, I couldn't say it better. You wrapped that up perfectly. I have the same feelings and thoughts about it. I especially like, and I think both the movie and the graphic novel do this, that they really, V speaks to the people, saying, you are the reason for this.
Sure.
You allowed this to happen. Even going to the point of, you have elected these people.
Yep.
It just so much the power, and, we are releasing this on November 6th.
Yeah, you've got an election day.
Tomorrow's election day.
Yeah, and that's
as of the release of this.
I think that's
again.
I think that's something that, regardless of where you stand on the political line, and this is, I don't know, this is veering off from our moving panels point here, but regardless of where you stand on the political line, what V says, like, you are the reason for this, I think harkens to an idea that not enough people spend enough time researching, understanding topics, political personalities, who people are. And I think it's a call to action to the biggest and most important thing you can do in the beginning of any type of quote unquote revolution is to mobilize yourself to understand who it is you're voting for, what you're voting for, and how it's going to affect your daily life and those you love and care about, their daily lives.
Yes, which is 100% what both Alan Moore and the Wachowskis were relaying. And again, they're different meanings.
Right.
They're the things they were connecting it. I mean, this is a movie that I would almost say I wouldn't mind them making it again.
Okay.
To see how they would alter the story to fit, our current culture and climate and all that. I'd be very, very curious to see how someone would. I mean, maybe even the way Watchmen. HBO did the Watchmen series where it was a reimagining.
I would take a very well done remake or reimagining. For sure.
Yeah. I would be very interested to see possibly a series in which they even reimagined the V for Vendetta and set it more in a more modern time. So yeah, I'm 100% bag it for both of these. Yeah, Alan Moore can write.
Absolutely.
I am not gonna bash Alan Moore as much as I kind of talk about how it's hard to read, but that's not because it's not a good read.
You just got to be in the zone to read it.
It's just, yeah, he is such a deep, a deep writer that it really lots of philosophy that you can get into, lots of deeper meanings behind things. But yeah, absolutely, the moral and the moral tone behind this, the ethics behind this story, the consequences that come with your actions, all of that is told brilliantly through this story. Again, the movie, the movie's good.
It's just it's a good movie. Yeah, on its own. Yeah.
The movie's good. It might be a little cheesy at moments, because they made it a little too Hollywood, but it still tells a good story.
Great movie.
So, yeah, we'll leave it at that. So, again, there's another Alan Moore. We've got Watchmen coming in March. We're just gonna I'll find a way to get League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in there, and we'll just complete the run of Alan Moore and make sure Blake is a part of all of that.
Yes. Sweet. I can't wait to talk about Sean Connery.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Again, I will stick with the day and time. Go out and make sure you vote if you are registered to vote. If you're over the age of 18,
get out and vote. Absolutely.
If you are over the age of 18 and aren't registered to vote, why not? So make your voice heard, and that is what it's all for. And so this was a great time to talk about this one. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for listening. Rate, review the show. But for today, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page. As we vault into the visionary world of V's Vendetta. Joining me in this vivacious and dang it, I screwed it up.
I feel like you were right at the end, weren't you? You were so close.
I so was.
With bated breath, I waited.
I so was. All right. Yeah, I was literally on the last sentence. All right, let's do it again.